Good evening. Welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring women-owned businesses from across the country. And now, for your host, Kimberly McElmore.
All right. Hello, and welcome to another night of sharing. With us, we have Kelley Tenny, founder and owner of A Haute Mom Coaching. Well, welcome, Kelley. How are you doing this evening?
I am fantastic. Thank you. Super excited to be here.
All right. Well, I'm glad that you're here. We finally have been going through the battle. I swear it has been a battle since last year trying to get this interview done. So we are finally here. We've had to go through some special things, but hey, it's working, and I'm excited about this opportunity tonight to talk to you. So if you can, just take a few minutes and tell the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Okay, well, I am a Southern California resident, a working mom of two little ones. I have a 5 and a 7-year-old, and I'm a marathoner. Part of the reason why this whole business came into fruition was because with my busy life, I have still somehow been able to manage juggling a career and family time and my hobbies and things like that. And I realize that so often moms tend to be the ones that sacrifice some of the things that they love for their motherly duties, which is what brought me right to, like I said, my business. And knowing that with a little bit of support, our fellow moms out there and just working women in general don't have to feel the need to sacrifice for the things that they want in the life that they want to live.
Okay. All right. Okay. Well, we're going to talk a little bit more about the business in a few minutes, but I want you to dive back just a little bit and tell me where you're from, and then we'll kind of get into a little bit more about the business, because I liked what you just said, and I think a lot of us women constantly go through that battle. But before we get into that, tell us a little bit more about where you're from.
All right. So you want the goods on my story? On my personal
yeah,
story.
I want the good stuff.
All right. Okay. So I am, like I said, I'm a Southern California resident. I live in Long Beach, California, and I am going to be 42 years old this July. I grew up actually right outside of San Francisco. I'm the oldest of 3 children. And college is what brought me down to the Long Beach area. So I studied health science, and I actually have my bachelor's in health education.
Okay.
The idea of wellness, and not so much physical health, but just all-rounded health and wellness, which led me to, strangely enough, becoming a 7th grade health teacher, which I did for 15 years. I taught 7th grade health until I had my first child, who's now 7. And I realized 7 years ago, I hit this crossroad where I was feeling like I wasn't being a good mom and a good teacher at the same time, if that makes any sense. I just was either spending my energy and my patience on my students, and I didn't have any when I got home, or I was reserving it and not doing everything I could for my students so that I could have that energy when I got home to my child. And that kind of led me on the road of being an entrepreneur. Okay. I'm married. My husband and I just had our 10th anniversary last summer.
Congratulations.
And one of the things, thank you. And one of the things I mentioned was that I'm a marathoner. So I love running. I just finished my 50th half marathon in Atlanta a couple of weeks ago.
Wow.
I have run 24 marathons and 1 ultra marathon, which was a 50-mile run. And that is really something that not only is just a hobby of mine, but it's really one of the things that I've found is a good part of my time in terms of, the time that I need to myself. So it's really been amazing in terms of being able to kind of, like I said, have that thinking time and get exercise and have the alone time. People ask me all the time, why do you run so many marathons? And I go, that's the only place my kids don't follow me is when I go.
Exactly.
2 miles.
Right. Yeah. You don't have to worry
Because
about
for
them chasing
anyone,
behind with those many miles, right?
yeah, exactly. Anybody who has children knows that other than that, there really is no sacred space. And so
hmm
that's always my ongoing joke is, running is the only time my children don't follow me. So,
Right. Right.
um, we are super busy. We've got a crazy household, and it's just a whole lot of fun right now.
Okay. Well, I'm listening to your story, and it's amazing how you actually came full circle just in the few minutes where you explained to me in the beginning about how you got into the business, and what really resonated with me was the same thing you just said a few minutes ago. It was, of course, about what we don't do for ourselves as women. We always have a tendency to allow everything and everyone to be a part of what we're trying to get done, and we always put ourselves on the back burner. And we usually have that epiphany of, okay, you know what, I can't do this anymore. I need to figure out what's going to work for me. But you have figured it out. And a lot of women are still setting, that goal that they have not been able to reach for years. And then we'll look up and, the kids are grown, the husband's all taken care of. If they're married, if you're not married, everything is taken care of, but we're still reaching for that moment of when is it that we can have time for ourselves. So,
Yeah.
tell me how you teach other women the secret of, as I always call it, the secret in the sauce. What it is that you learn besides the fact of what we've already talked about that made you want to say, hey, you know what? I can help other women do this. What is it that you've taught them and as a part of the business aspect of it?
So I would say that was discovering that secret, I think, was a process for me. And really, it's the process that I support other women in taking. And that is the idea that not just mothers, but I think women in general tend to grow up with a sense of guilt in terms of, our roles are to support others. And we come head to head with a guilty or selfish feeling when we are trying to take time for ourselves. I think there's a lot of stigma out there in our society about, women who get pampered and women who do things, on their own. And we grow up with this sense of our responsibility is to support others. And so, honestly, I watched my mom raise three of us and selflessly give up a lot of the things that she enjoyed. And now that we are all grown, I really see a sense of loss in terms of her life now and who she is. And it was kind of like she was the roles that she knew that involved taking care of others. But once people didn't need taken care of, she almost didn't remember the things that brought her joy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think the secret is giving yourself permission to covet that time and to carve out time for the things that you love. Realize that that is part of being healthy, and part of wellness is that there's joy, right? And the joy comes from things that you enjoy doing, not just from the other people in your life. And for some reason, my clients really come head to head with that. And I support them through that process, letting them know that, they're not terrible wives if they order pizza one night. They're not terrible mothers if they want to go on vacation without their children. They're not terrible, money wasters if they want to pamper themselves at the spa every now and then. That really is something that everybody not only deserves, but really truly is what makes us healthy in all senses and aspects of that word.
Right. I agree with that. And I like what you were saying, that we as women, we don't give ourselves permission. And, I'm listening to how you're talking about your mom. I think it's a generational thing. I think, each generation, we were constantly being told that, hey, you got to take care of the family first. You got to take care of your husband. You got to take care of this. And I can remember growing up and hearing a lot of the same things. And, you're right. I sat there and thought about how even when my brother and I had left home, and it was like my mom, she, did other things, but it was that thought process of, okay, well, what am I going to do what am I going to do without the kids here? She actually at one point actually thought about raising more kids and adopting and bringing other kids, or being a foster parent. Her and my dad, and my dad was like, no, you've lost your mind. We're not doing that, but it was just that trial period of an error of understanding, hey, what am I going to do? I have nobody to take care of. And not realizing, I think, for that moment that she really needed to just take care of herself and be able to enjoy life. And obviously, you know, I've seen her blossom into this woman who's just gone gangbusters and doing the things that she loved throughout the years, you know, and you know, I think that, you know, a lot of women are constantly going through that. And your story that you're telling, the story that I'm telling, is something that you still hear women talk about today. And I even find myself having to, you know, kind of reach back and say, hey, Kim, you know, you need to take time out for yourself, because as business owners, we still do find ourselves constantly taking care of everybody else. And, you know, I'm not married or anything, but, you know, even after coming out of divorce, I had to realize that, you know, it's time for me to put me first. And then I still reach back every now and then, you know, I'm like, oh, no, I'm doing too much for somebody else. It's time for me to continue to say, I'm going to go do this. You know, I'd go do my spa day every month, those types of things that you're talking about. So I get it. And I just think it's beautiful when women can finally come together and understand what their worth is, and that it's okay that you can have permission to do whatever you want. Like you said, it doesn't make you a bad mom. It doesn't make you a bad person because you decide that you need that little bit of time to just unwind. You know, just something as simple as taking a glass of wine. People laugh about it, but that's probably the most relaxing thing that, you know, majority of women do, because we just need that minute, those few moments of just enjoying that sip of wine and that relaxation that, you know, some people would take for granted because they don't understand that, hey, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and now the kids are finally in bed or whatever, and they just need that time. So explain to me, though, that when a client comes to you or somebody comes to talk to you, do you have like a specific pattern or program, or what is it? How do you get them to kind of convey what is it that they have to use, and how can you help them work their way out of that process?
So, you know, one of the great things about my work, I think, is that there's a lot of businesses and things out there that are like a one-step package, if you will, right? So with my business, the amazing thing of working with all my beautiful clients is that each one of them has their own challenges and areas where they are just a little off balance in terms of the time that they'd like to care for themselves. So for example, I have clients that, you know, they feel like working out is a part of their routine, but then they feel guilty to go out with friends. And then we have clients that, you know, are great with socializing, but then they feel bad if they want to pay for a yoga class, you know, or, and so one of the things, and I work mainly with business women and entrepreneurs. I find that those of us that own our own businesses tend to work more than the 9-to-5 day. We don't, you know, walk away from our desk and shut it down at 5 o'clock. And so sometimes it's those women entrepreneurs or the ones that work from home that really need help with giving themselves permission to stop working. And so we go through an initial call where we really talk about like what would you love? What are the things that bring you joy? And are you doing them? And really honing in on the things that they enjoy that they are not doing. And, you know, my support comes in helping them scale how they're running their business so that they free up time to actually do the things that they enjoy. And for some of them, I mean, for a lot of people, it really is just a time management issue.
Right.
And that time management component mixed with the guilt of I shouldn't go to the yoga class at 9 o'clock because I'm a business owner and technically I should be opening my business at 9 o'clock. And what are people going to say if I don't answer emails until 10 o'clock because I took that time? And it's funny because it comes full circle because most of us became entrepreneurs so that we would have flexibility in our schedules.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
But it's us who actually tend to work 12 to 14-hour days.
Yep. And
then get bogged down by a schedule that we actually have 100% control over.
That is correct.
And I think that's the biggest thing that we work on is again, it's giving the permission of what's going to happen if you don't answer emails until 10 o'clock. Like what's going to happen if you do go to yoga and nobody gets an email by 10 o'clock.
Right.
But maybe your emails are like amazing and they're thoughtful and they're creative because you're rejuvenated from your yoga class, right? Maybe your work through the day is more efficient and focused because you actually gave yourself something that you needed first.
Right.
And it's really giving them the support of walking through that process. And like I said, for every woman, it tends to be the same process and the same barrier. It's really that activity and that place that they want to spend more time in, varies from woman to woman.
Right. I agree with that. And it definitely is. Time management is always an issue. And then you're right, as business owners, like I said earlier, that we have a tendency to forget, and because we're so concerned about making sure that all of our clients are taken care of. But at the end of the day, if we can't take care of ourselves, we cannot take care of our clients in the right magnitude. So I love your approach and the thought process. You're just really reaching back and making people think a little bit about, hey, you need to do this, because like you said, it could be the best email because you got the opportunity to release, and to do the things that you need to do in that activity, so that you could perform moving forward, within your business. So, but let me ask you, with your business, what have been some of the challenges that you face, though, putting this business together?
Well, I think I face a lot of the same challenges that my clients face. One is, I know I mentioned that I was a seventh grade health teacher for 15 years. It was my career. And stepping away from that was probably my first challenge, really having this sense of guilt and honestly feeling judged, even that I was walking away from this very stable job that I had with a husband and 2 little ones. Mm-hmm. And just walking away and saying, I'm leaving my retirement. I'm leaving my benefits. I'm leaving this income that I know comes, once a month, and I'm going to create something different for myself because I wanted that flexibility. I wanted more flexibility to do what I was doing. And that was a huge challenge because, in all honesty, I really had a pretty flexible job. I mean, if my kids were sick, mm-hmm. I could get a substitute. I mean, it wasn't something that was terrible. I had an amazing amount of sick time. But there was something in me that knew that part of finding overall wellness and living a life where I don't lose myself to the things that I'm committed to really meant creating a schedule and finding something that I love doing. And in the end, I wasn't in love with what I was doing anymore.
Right.
And I had a lot of, you're going to let people down. You're going to let your team down. You're going to mm-hmm. My son is going to have you in 2 months or 2 years, and now you're letting us down. And I had to, then I slip into the pattern of being the nurturing woman. I don't mm-hmm. want to let people down. I want to, and I really just had to say that I had to do it myself, knowing that it was going to be better for everybody that was connected to me. So that was I think that was the biggest barrier of leaving something very stable mm-hmm. and taking a step into an unknown in hopes of finding a life where I had more joy.
Right. But the thing I was just listening to you say is that it's amazing that when people decide to do something that's within their heart and they really want to do something they're proud of and they just want to live their life, it's amazing how many people will tell you wrong that what it is you're doing. There's not always that support that you think you're going to get from people when you decide that, hey, I'm going to go out here in this great venture and I'm going to do this for myself. But at the same time, you're still helping people. You discovered something within yourself and realized that the same problem that you're having every day, there's a multitude of people out here going through that same process and that same problem. And so I just think it's always amazing how people who have the fear of being adventurous, because we all have a passion within inside of us. It's just discovering that passion and deciding whether or not you're going to move forward. They're usually the most critical. And, I've heard the same thing as, oh, you must be crazy. And even though I'm still, I still work and so forth, but my big goal, of course, is to do this 100% on my own without having to worry about, oh, I got to get this job, I got to be here from 8 to 5, type scenario. And you get tired of that life. And, what we do, and all the women that I have met, we're all about, we're still nurturers, but at the same token, we're all about helping people, but we also are about helping ourselves and realizing that we want to live our dreams just like anybody else does. And so, I applaud anybody who's in business, but I especially applaud all of us women, because we do have, usually our stack is pretty full. And, a lot of times people don't see what goes on behind the scenes of what you're doing. All they see is the shell of the person. And so, anytime a woman is going into business for themselves, it's a great thing. And I appreciate it. And I'm sure many of your clients who appreciate you. And I learn something from each one of you. Every time I interview and I talk about, what it is you're sharing, and just what you talked about tonight, I see that in myself all the time. Oh my gosh, I got to do this, I got to do that. Let's see, how many hours can I get done before I can lay you down, or maybe I might be able to get this something on TV I may want to watch, but it's always about the business. It's always about everybody first. But, we do have to take that time out because it makes us better individuals, and it also makes it better for the clients that we do serve. But on that note, I do want to know, if you had one advice to give to any woman who wants to start a business, what would that advice be?
Well, can I give two pieces of advice?
Sure.
Okay.
You can collab, put it together.
One piece of advice, and you touched upon this when we talked about pushback that we potentially get when we are branching out on our own. And one thing that I have learned and really started honing in on, and I think it's there for all of us, but I really would encourage people, just anybody, to focus on, is that pushback tends to come when we are doing something that is stepping outside of a stereotypic role or realm, right? And so what I've noticed is that pushback tends to come, I find, and for my clients as well, the pushback tends to come when people are moving forward into living a life that they love. And so now personally, I always know when I get pushback that I'm actually probably moving in the right direction, and that it's just these little bumps in the road that are thrown in front of us to really see, well, how badly do you want to get there? Are you going to let this little bump stop you, or are you really going to push on? And it can be, obviously that can be in anything, whether relationships or, physical, whatever it is. But with business, I really would encourage people to hurdle those bumps and know that those bumps come in areas when you're actually moving in the right direction. And so many people feel like those bumps come when you're not doing the thing that you're supposed to be doing. I really don't believe that that's true. I really believe that challenges are placed in front of us to show us how strong we are and to remind us how badly we want that thing that we're going for. And so, the biggest piece of advice would be to embrace that. And to know that, there's so many stories, whether you're religious, and there's so many books in religion and worlds of stories, and if people just think about their own experiences, how many amazing things are at the other end when they've actually pushed through those little bumps in the road, that for the person starting their business is the biggest thing. Believe in your heart and your business, and know that those bumps are there to remind you of your strengths and of your whole why as to why you wanted to get there in the first place.
Absolutely.
And the second piece really goes along with that, and just also embracing the idea that we become better friends, partners, parents, daughters, when we are living a life that we enjoy. And so people who are potentially leaving a full-time job to start their own business and feeling that struggle or the pushback of, irresponsibility or letting people down or whatever it may be, I see in my clients that they become just thriving, better people in general when they finally have tapped into doing something that they love. And so, I think sometimes we worry that, gosh, if we start our own business, am I going to be as good as I am now in my job? Am I going to be the expert that I am now? And that was something that I looked at. I was, gosh, I've been a teacher for X amount of years. I'm someone that other teachers come to or they watch when they want to know how to teach a certain thing or classroom management. And I'm like this expert. Am I going to leave and not be as good?
Mm-hmm.
But really knowing that if you're following your passion and opening your own business or starting your own business, that the ability to serve and be there for other people is going to completely open compared to being in a position where, you're not passionate or fulfilled by what you're doing.
I agree. And definitely love the way that you provide the advice. And the one thing that I would add to that is that I think the biggest problem that we sometimes face is that we have to understand that not everybody's going to understand our journey. And it's okay. We don't need to have their permission and we don't need to apologize for it. And I think that's the main thing that I have learned. And, you said it very well that, it's okay. Be a person who start to do what you love instead of doing what you feel like you just have to do in order to survive. Because we all know, and, we live in a society where you have to make money in order to maintain what, you're living. And that is what it is. But when you're doing what you're doing, it makes it so much worth, that extra time you're putting in because you can see the results. And the biggest result is just the result within yourself. Because like you said, you've taken that step of faith, you've reached out there to do something you want to do, and you're sharing those experiences with other people. And like you said, you're already dealing with people who are entrepreneurs, business owners. So they have that same feeling. They when they took that leap of faith, they knew that they could do something better. But definitely having that balance is important. Time management is important. And whether you're working a job or whether you own a business, or if you're a stay-at-home mother or whatever the case may be, you need to have all of that.
And you said something that's so important, and that was that not everybody is going to understand.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's a pattern that I see a lot of my clients brush up against is they have spouses who don't understand, or their children don't understand, or their parent, like my mom is always like, oh, you're gone running again. Like she just doesn't understand. And if you really think about it, and it tends to be like right in your face when you're doing something that's scary, like all of a sudden it's like nobody understands on top of that.
Mm-hmm.
Really, I think that's just a part of life, right? I think that we go through phases of friends, we go through relationships, we go through jobs where there comes a point where we separate paths with certain people who no longer understand or support the journey that we are going to go on.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it really comes on strong when taking that step into starting a business and being a business owner. And I think that point is so important to bring up, is realizing that everybody is going to be your biggest cheerleader,
mm-hmm.
right? But understanding that it doesn't matter, and that more cheerleaders will be met throughout the way.
Right.
And so, I know that's just it's a big thing when I see people with business or even trying something new with their business or, whatever it may be, there's always somebody or something that is not supportive.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's very much in our nature to want to please everybody.
Absolutely.
But really understanding that the bottom line is that it's not ever going to happen. Right?
That's right.
Because if you please one person, somebody else isn't pleased. So really just holding true to knowing that you yourself is the first person that you have to make happy, because nothing happens if that essential need isn't met.
Absolutely. But I do believe that things happen for a reason. And sometimes, we don't understand why, our heart goes a certain way, or we feel like we have this desire to do things. But like you said, if you leap into it and you do it because you love it, that's all that counts. And I think that's the most important part. And it's just, getting people to open their minds and understand that it's okay, to live your dreams. And like I always tell people, dare to be fearless. That's what you're here for. Nothing worse than, sitting back 10, 15, 20 years later and saying, I wish I had of. And it's not that you're ever too old to start something, but at the same token, why not do it, while you're very healthy and ambitious, because as we get older, you're going to slow down eventually. And, you just want to just live. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I always laugh and I tell people, like, you ever remember, if you're old enough, you're going to remember the commercials where they talk about the golden years for retirement. And I can remember seeing that as a kid. I'm like, is that what this is about? I got to work this hard just to enjoy retirement at the age of 70 or 80 and not really being able to enjoy it. That's not the life that I want to live. And I always thought about that, and I think that, because the generations that we were raised in, is always about, hey, go out here and get your job, get your education, just get a good job and, save for your retirement, not realizing that not everybody's being taught that it's okay to get your education, but go ahead and take that education and utilize it and do something for yourself. So lots of lessons learned growing up, and becoming as I call, a true grown up and as an adult. And I think it's always important that we share this information with our children, so that the legacy isn't just about leaving them something. The legacy is about learning. And I think that's always important.
And I don't know if I mentioned this, but one of the biggest things for me was I grew up, so I'm the oldest of three, and I grew up with both parents working. And my dad was starting his business when I was born. And my mom was an administrative secretary in San Francisco. She had a tremendous commute, and I was the child that was like the first one dropped off in daycare and like the last one that was picked up. And I remember now looking back, like I really felt an absence, and I really felt I was very aware of how much my parents worked and how little time I spent with them. Fast forward to having my own children, I was really hearing, why do you have to work so late? Why can't you pick me up when the bell rings like everybody else? And I realized that, like you said, I could say, okay, I'll be there in 20 years when I retire. I'll be home at 3:00. But really what I'm missing is now, right? Like they're being raised by other people because I have this job that sometimes had really long hours, and leaving that behind. And when we do that, whether or not you have children, I think when we do that early on, when we just say, you know what, why can't I travel the world now? Why do I have to wait until I'm 75? Why can't I work from home? Why do I have to wait until I'm ready to retire?
Right.
We become an inspiration, right? And I think the bigger thing is teaching others, inspiring others that it absolutely can be done. And when people said, why would you leave your job? One of the things was, I don't want to teach my children that you have to work all day long and have your kids in daycare in order to be a good parent. Like, that was not the message. That's the message I got, which is probably why I went into the career that I did, but the message that I wanted them to have. And I wanted them to see that mom can work from home and we don't have to be on a budget. And, it's not corporate world that you have to be in. And, even, and some people might disagree with me because I'm a teacher, maybe college isn't the right way for you, right? Like maybe there's another path. And teaching them, I have so many colleagues that are like, you would actually tell your children not to go to college, knowing that college isn't always the best answer for people, especially for people like entrepreneurs. And so, I think for people who are courageous and brave enough and are thinking about starting their own business or running into barriers, knowing that the journey that they are leading is really, who knows who it's going to inspire.
That's right. Exactly.
There could be somebody who's just in a miserable job, and seeing somebody leave, seeing a colleague leave to start their own business might spark their own fire. And I feel like that's one of the things that we can do as entrepreneurs, is we can really spark passion in others to realize that they can create their own dream job and lead their own dream life. And always know that there's somebody that's watching, that's paying attention, that's being inspired, and that's learning from what it is we're doing by starting our own businesses and really being, the pioneers in whatever business it is that we're creating.
Absolutely. On that note, that is a good way to end. But before we actually end, I would like for you to tell the listeners how they can get a hold of you.
So I think that probably, I know my business email is a mouthful, So I would say a personal email is probably the best way to get a hold of me. And that's Kelley Tenny, Kelley, Tenny, Tenny @gmail.com.
Okay. All right. Well, I do want to say thank you so much for sharing your time with me. And it was a great conversation. And I'm sure that all the listeners are going to value this and learn something. And, I appreciate, again, like I said, your time. And do you have any last words for the listeners?
No, I just want to thank you for having me. And, I would just want to encourage anybody out there to know that there, is a dream job for them, and to be bold and courageous in whatever it is they want to do.
All right. Again, like I said, I appreciate you coming on tonight and sharing your story. For everyone else, enjoy the rest of your evening.
Good night, everyone. We will be back next Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Follow us on Spreaker, www.spreaker.com/user/WSBI. View our new WSBI website anytime at www.wsbillc.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram.